The Secret of the Machine God. Chapter 1, Discovery. The machine spirit was weeping. Hidden for millennia in darkness, the forgotten technology now sent forth its call, pleading in whispers tired of waiting to impart its knowledge. When Explorator Magos Daimon Rho heard that voice, his centuries of scientific training became meaningless in an instant. The small amount of organic tissue still remaining among his augmetics and bionic implants trembled with a sensation he had long ago classified as irrelevant to his pursuit of knowledge. "All verify Auspex readings," he commanded, his voice now more synthesizer than human. "Cross-reference with archeotech patterns alpha through epsilon." The servitors around him moved with the slow precision of the lobotomized, their once human bodies now vehicles for machine directives. Their limbs jerked mechanically as they adjusted dials and interpreted data flowing across ancient screens. Pattern recognition, 94.7% consistent with standard template construct architecture, Magos, intoned the servitor to his right, its voice flat and emotionless. Metallic composition includes elements not in current Mechanicus database. Aboard the Explorator vessel Omnissiah's Revelation Daimon Rho stood upon the observation deck, gazing out at the desolate world below. The planet, designated only as XD-119 in Imperial records, orbited a dying star at the edge of the Imperium's cartographic knowledge. It had been bypassed by previous explorations, deemed too resource-poor to merit colonization, too strategically insignificant to warrant a military presence. Yet beneath its unremarkable surface, the Auspex had detected something remarkable indeed. "Prepare the landing party," Daimon ordered, his mechadendrites coiling and uncoiling in what might have been excitement in a more human figure. "Notify Tech-Priest Lumina Vectorus. Her expertise in Dark Age interfaces will be required." "As you command, Magos," the servitor responded. "Should the Inquisitorial observer be informed as well?" Daimon paused, his augmetic eye whirring as it adjusted focus. The presence of Inquisitor Cade aboard his vessel was problematic. The Ordo Hereticus representative had been assigned to the expedition following certain irregularities in the Explorator fleet's previous missions, irregularities that Daimon preferred not to contemplate too deeply. "The Inquisitor will be notified as protocol demands," he said finally, "but only after we have established a secure perimeter and conducted preliminary analysis." What the mouthpiece of the Inquisition didn't immediately know wouldn't require immediate judgment. Scientific curiosity demanded at least a few hours of uninterrupted investigation before the inevitable scrutiny descended. As the servitors shuffled away to relay his commands, Daimon remained at the viewport, studying the barren landscape below. The reading had come from a vast, crater-like depression in the planet's northern hemisphere, a structure too geometrically perfect to be natural, yet too ancient to be human in origin. The machine spirit's call had grown stronger as they approached, resonating through his augmetics in a way that made his internal systems fluctuate unpredictably. It was as if the technology below recognized something in him, something beyond his rank and authority within the Adeptus Mechanicus. Something kindred. Such thoughts bordered on the metaphysical, perhaps even the heretical. Daimon purged them from his cogitators and focused on the practical considerations of the mission ahead. Tech-Priest Lumina Vectorus sensed the vibration of approaching footsteps through the deck plates 3 seconds before the knock came at her chamber door. Her augmented hearing easily identified Magos Rho's distinctive gait. The slight imbalance in his left knee actuator created a barely perceptible asymmetry in his stride pattern. "Enter," she called, not looking up from the small device she was calibrating on her workbench. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing the imposing figure of the Explorator Magos. Daimon Rho stood nearly 7 feet tall, his crimson robes barely concealing the extensive modifications to his original human form. Where a face might once have been, there was now a complex arrangement of lenses, vocalizers, and sensory apparatus. Only the lower jaw remained organic, a quirk of vanity or sentiment that Lumina found curiously inconsistent with his otherwise ruthless pursuit of mechanical perfection. "We have found something," he stated without preamble. "Something that may validate your unconventional theories." Lumina set down her tools carefully, trying to maintain the appearance of emotional detachment that was expected of Mechanicus adepts. But inside her partially augmented brain, excitement flared like an overloaded circuit. "A standard template construct?" she asked, allowing only a hint of anticipation to color her still mostly human voice. "The preliminary readings suggest as much, but there are anomalies." The Magos' mechadendrites extended, transferring a data slate to her. "See for yourself." Lumina took the slate, her augmetic right eye rapidly scanning the information while her biological left widened in surprise. At 32 standard Terran years, she was exceptionally young for a tech-priest of her rank. Her rise through the Mechanicus hierarchy had been meteoric and controversial, propelled by a brilliant, intuitive understanding of archaeotech that many of her more traditionally minded peers found disturbing. "These energy signatures," she mused, scrolling through the data, "they don't match any known imperial technology. The material's composition is unusual." "Your assessment," Daimon prompted. Lumina hesitated, aware that her answer could either cement her position as a rising star in the Explorator fleet or confirm her reputation as a dangerous radical. "I believe it's pre-imperial," she said finally, "possibly dating to the dark age of technology, but some of these readings suggest modifications, as if the STC was altered by a non-human intelligence." The Magos' vocalizer emitted a burst of static that might have been a scoff. "Xenotech contamination, or collaboration," Lumina suggested quietly. "The historical records from before the Age of Strife are fragmentary at best. There are indications that humanity once engaged in technological exchange with certain Xeno species before the birth of the Imperium. Such speculation borders on tech heresy, Lumina Vectorus," Daimon warned, though his tone lacked the zealous condemnation that might have come from a more doctrinaire Magos. "The Omnissiah's wisdom flows through human vessels alone. With respect, Magos, the Omnissiah's wisdom is the universe's wisdom. Knowledge itself cannot be heretical, only its application." She met his augmetic gaze steadily. "Is that not why you've brought this to me, rather than to Archmagos Synaptica?" A tense silence followed, broken only by the soft whirring of cooling fans within the Magos' torso cavity. Archmagos Delphine Synaptica was the senior tech-priest aboard the Omnissiah's Revelation Asterisk, a staunch traditionalist who viewed Lumina's rapid advancement with undisguised suspicion. "Expediency demands certain procedural adaptations," Daimon acknowledged finally. "The Archmagos is currently occupied with the optimization of the ship's Geller field generators, a task that will require approximately 37.6 hours to complete. The landing party departs in 90 minutes. Lumina nodded, understanding the implicit message. This discovery would be investigated on their terms first, before the more conservative elements of the Mechanicus hierarchy could establish procedural barriers. "I'll prepare my equipment," she said, already calculating which of her specialized archaeotech interfaces might be compatible with the discovery. "What about the Inquisitorial representative?" "Inquisitor Cade will be informed according to protocol," Daimon replied evenly, "after initial safety assessments have been completed." Lumina's partially mechanical heart skipped a beat, a biological imperfection she had not yet purged from her system. The Magos was proposing to temporarily withhold information from the Inquisition, a dangerous gambit that could end with both of them branded as heretics if discovered. Is that, wise Magos? Wisdom and necessity rarely align perfectly, Tech-Priest Vectorus, Daimon responded, his vocalizer dropping to a lower register. The pursuit of knowledge demands calculated risk. The Omnissiah does not reward timidity. With that, he turned to leave, his robes swirling around his mechanical legs. At the doorway, he paused. Bring your experimental noospheric interface, the one you've been developing, without Archmagos Synaptica's approval. Lumina froze. How did you? I am Explorator Magos of this vessel. Little occurs aboard that escapes my notice. There was an almost human note of amusement in his synthesized voice. Your discretion is commendable, but unnecessary in this instance. The interface may prove useful if the SDC contains corrupted data cores. After he departed, Lumina remained motionless for several seconds, processing this unexpected development. Magos Rho had not only known about her unauthorized research, but appeared to tacitly approve of it. The implications were as promising as they were unsettling. She moved quickly to a sealed panel in the floor of her chamber, pressing her augmetic hand against the hidden biometric scanner. The panel slid open silently, revealing a small, shimmering device that resembled a crown of copper and silver filaments. The noospheric interface was her masterwork, a radical reimagining of how human minds could connect with machine spirits. Traditional Mechanicus dogma held that technology must be approached through ritual, binary incantation, and approved protocols. Lumina's interface bypassed these limitations, creating a direct neural link between the user and the machine's logic engines. It was innovative, efficient, and if discovered by the wrong elements within the Mechanicus, potentially grounds for her designation as a Heerdek. Yet now Magos Rho himself had instructed her to bring it. Something about this discovery had prompted him to step beyond the bounds of orthodoxy. As she carefully packed the interface along with her more conventional equipment, Lumina tried to quiet the mixture of excitement and apprehension building within her. Whatever awaited them on the planet's surface, it would either validate her unorthodox approaches or condemn her for them. The descent to XD-119's surface was uneventful, the landing craft's machine spirit responding obediently to the Tech-Priest's ministrations. As they broke through the thin cloud cover, Lumina gazed out at the bleak landscape below. The planet was a study in monochrome, vast stretches of gray-black rock interrupted occasionally by pale, alkaline salt flats. No water was visible on the surface, though the preliminary scans had detected ice deposits deep beneath the crust. Nothing grew, nothing moved except dust clouds stirred by the bitter, keening wind. Atmospheric composition within acceptable parameters, reported Tech-Priest Garamond, the expedition's environmental specialist. Oxygen levels sufficient for unaugmented human respiration, though filtration is recommended due to high particulate content. Daimon Rho acknowledged this with a mechanical nod, his attention focused on the approaching landing site. From the air, the structure they had detected presented itself as a perfect circle carved into the planet's surface. A crater nearly 3 kilometers in diameter, its edges too precise to be the result of natural impact. Energy signatures intensifying, noted Artisan Thule, monitoring the Auspex equipment. Pattern fluctuations consistent with activation protocols. Activation, Lumina questioned sharply. The technology is responding to our approach. Affirmative, Thule confirmed. Low-level power systems engaging throughout the structure. Readings indicate dormancy protocols transitioning to standby state. Lumina exchanged glances with Magos Rho, or what passed for glances when one participant had replaced their eyes with augmetic lenses. The implication was clear. Whatever lay below had detected their presence and was, in some sense, awakening. The landing craft settled onto a flat expanse of rock near the crater's edge, its engines powering down with a diminishing whine. Through the viewport, Lumina could now see details that had been invisible from orbit, intricate patterns etched into the crater's inner walls, glyphs or symbols of some kind that occasionally flickered with a faint blue luminescence. "Prepare for disembarkation," Daimon Rho instructed, his mechadendrites connecting briefly with the craft's control panel to verify external conditions. "Tech-Priest Vectorus, you will accompany me to investigate the primary energy source. Artisan Thule, establish a base camp and communications relay. Tech-Priest Garamond, conduct perimeter analysis with emphasis on identifying potential access points to the substructure." As the Tech-Priests moved to comply, the craft's side hatch opened with a pneumatic hiss, admitting a gust of dust-laden air. The smell of ancient stone and metal, oxidized over millennia, filled Lumina's still organic nostrils. She followed Magos Rho down the ramp, her augmetic leg whirring slightly as it adjusted to the planet's gravity. Behind them came a small procession of servitors carrying equipment, their blank eyes staring vacantly ahead as they trudged forward on mechanical limbs. The crater's edge loomed before them, a sheer drop of perhaps 50 meters to the base below. Up close, the patterns Lumina had observed from the landing craft resolved into intricate circuitry, lines of some metallic substance inlaid directly into the stone, forming complex geometric patterns that occasionally pulsed with that same ethereal blue light. "Remarkable," she murmured, her augmetic eye capturing and storing high-resolution images for later analysis. "The entire structure appears to be a single integrated circuit. But what powers it after all this time?" "A question worth pursuing," Daimon acknowledged, deploying a small flotation platform from his robes, a rare piece of technology that allowed him to hover several feet above the ground. "The primary energy signature emanates from the center of the crater. Shall we proceed?" Lumina activated her own mobility enhancements, less elegant than the Magos's but functional nonetheless, and together they descended into the vast depression. As they approached the center, the blue luminescence in the circuitry patterns grew more pronounced, pulsing in what seemed almost like a heartbeat. Servitors followed behind, their heavy footfalls raising small clouds of dust that swirled in the thin atmosphere. At the crater's center stood a simple obelisk of black material that resembled no stone or metal Lumina had ever encountered. It rose perhaps 3 meters from the ground, its surface unmarked except for a single horizontal seam at approximately chest height. "This is the source?" Lumina asked, approaching cautiously. "Affirmative," Daimon replied, his array of sensors focused intently on the obelisk. "Energy readings are consistent with a dormant STC data core. But the composition—" He trailed off, his mechadendrites extending to take samples and readings from the air surrounding the structure. Lumina circled the obelisk slowly, her augmetic eye scanning for any recognizable interfaces or access points. Finding none, she extended her own, more limited mechadendrite and gently touched the structure's surface. The response was immediate and unexpected. The seam she had noted earlier suddenly illuminated with the same blue light that coursed through the crater's circuitry, and with a soft sound like an indrawn breath, the upper portion of the obelisk split into 4 sections that peeled back like the petals of a flower. Within the opening lay a crystalline matrix, a lattice of translucent material shot through with threads of gold and silver, rotating slowly above a pedestal of the same black substance as the obelisk itself. "Omnissiah preserve us," Daimon intoned, the ritual phrase seemingly automatic as his cognitive processors struggled to categorize what they were seeing. This is no standard SDC configuration. Lumina stepped closer, mesmerized by the rotating crystal. Within its depths, she could see what appeared to be data structures, three-dimensional patterns of light that shifted and reconfigured themselves like living things. "It's beautiful," she whispered, a very human response that she would normally have suppressed, and familiar somehow. The architecture resembles theoretical models from my research into direct noospheric integration. "Your experimental interface," Daimon said, his tone unreadable. "Would it be compatible with such a system?" Lumina tore her gaze away from the hypnotic crystal to look at the Magos. "Theoretically, yes, but the risks would be considerable. This technology is clearly beyond our current understanding. A direct neural interface could have unpredictable consequences. Yet it may be our only means of accessing the knowledge contained within," Daimon countered. "Traditional data extraction methods would likely damage such a delicate matrix." Before Lumina could respond, her comm bead crackled to life with Artisan Thewel's urgent voice. "Magos Rho, we have a situation at the base camp. Inquisitor Cade has arrived via personal transport and is demanding access to the excavation site. He appears agitated." Daimon's vocalizer emitted a burst of binary code that translated roughly to an obscenity. "Stall him," he instructed. "Invoke safety protocols. Inform him that we are conducting preliminary contamination assessments." "Yes, Magos," Thewel responded, though his tone suggested the delay would not be long. Daimon turned back to Lumina. "Our timeline has been compressed. The Inquisition's involvement complicates matters considerably, particularly if they decide this technology falls outside approved parameters for research." Lumina agreed grimly. The Inquisition's approach to questionable technology was notoriously binary, useful to the Imperium or too dangerous to exist. "We must establish our claim quickly," Daimon decided. "Initiate a basic interface with the crystal matrix. Nothing invasive, just enough to determine its general purpose and origin." Lumina hesitated. "Without proper precautions and analysis, time is no longer a luxury we possess, Tech-Priest Vectorus." The Magos cut her off. "The choice is simple. We gain at least preliminary understanding of this discovery, or we relinquish it to Inquisitorial sequestration, likely never to be studied properly." Put that way, the decision seemed clear. Lumina reached into her equipment pack and withdrew her experimental interface. The crown of copper and silver filaments that mirrored, in some strange way, the structure of the crystal before them. "I'll need to calibrate it to the specific resonance frequencies of the matrix," she said, already adjusting minute dials and connectors on the device. "And I should warn you, Magos, once established, the connection may be difficult to terminate prematurely without risking damage to both the user and the technology." "Understood," Daimon replied. "Proceed with caution, but proceed. I will monitor your vital signs and neural patterns for any signs of corruption or overload." Lumina placed the interface on her head, feeling the familiar tingle as the filaments aligned with her neural implants. Taking a deep breath, another human habit she had never quite eliminated, she activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal matrix before her pulsed once, brightly, and the world dissolved into streams of data. She was no longer standing in a crater on a desolate planet. She was everywhere and nowhere, her consciousness expanding outward through a lattice of pure information. Images, concepts, and knowledge, too vast to comprehend, flooded through her augmented mind. And through it all, a voice, neither human nor machine, but something in between, whispered in a language that should have been alien but which she understood perfectly. "At last, after so long, someone comes who can hear." Listen carefully, child of earth and iron. What I am about to share will either save your species or condemn it. The choice, as it has always been, remains yours. On the physical plane, Daimon Rho watched as Lumina Vectorus stood frozen before the crystal, her organic eye wide and unseeing, her augmetic one cycling through spectrums at an alarming rate. The interface on her head glowed with the same blue light as the matrix, filaments pulsing in perfect synchronization with the crystal's rotation. His sensors detected approaching footsteps, multiple sets, one with the distinctive rhythm of Inquisitorial armor. Their time had run out, but as he prepared to intervene, to disconnect Lumina from whatever communion she had established with the ancient technology, she spoke, her voice overlaid with harmonics that should have been impossible for human vocal cords to produce. Standard template construct designation: Omnissiah's cradle. Origin: Mars, 15th millennium. Purpose: preservation of humanity's highest technological achievements against catastrophic regression. Her head turned toward him, though her eyes showed no recognition. This is merely the key, Magos Rho. The vault lies beneath. And with those cryptic words, the ground beneath them began to tremble. At the crater's edge, Inquisitor Thaddeus Cade stepped from his personal transport, his face set in lines of grim determination. Behind him, 4 power-armored acolytes surveyed the excavation site, bolt guns held at ready positions. "Explain to me," Cade said coldly to the nervous artisan Thule, "why I was not informed immediately of a potentially Xenos technological discovery." "Not Xenos, Inquisitor," Thule protested weakly. "Initial readings suggested standard human archaeotech patterns. The Magos is simply conducting routine contamination assessments before." "Save your fabrications," Cade interrupted. "My own auspex detected energy signatures consistent with active xenotech the moment we entered orbit. The patterns match nothing in Imperial databases." He stepped to the crater's edge, looking down at the distant figures gathered around the central obelisk. Even from this distance, his enhanced vision could make out the unnatural glow emanating from both the structure and what appeared to be a device attached to one of the tech-priests. "The Ordo Hereticus has long suspected certain elements within Explorator Fleet Gamma of technological heterodoxy," Cade continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous murmur. "It seems those suspicions were well-founded." The ground suddenly shuddered beneath their feet, a low rumble rising from deep below the planet's surface. At the center of the crater, the area around the obelisk began to descend, the entire central platform sinking into previously invisible depths. "Emperor preserve us," one of the acolytes breathed. "What have they awakened?" Inquisitor Cade's expression hardened as he activated his power sword, the blade humming to life with crackling energy. "Something that will be answered for," he stated flatly. "Prepare for descent. Lethal force authorized against anyone who resists Imperial authority." As the Inquisitorial team began their descent into the crater, the tremors intensified. Across the desolate landscape, ancient mechanisms long dormant stirred to life, responding to a call that had waited millennia to be answered. The secret of the machine god was about to be revealed. Chapter 2. Holy Technology. Darkness and light swirled around Lumina Vectorus as her consciousness rode waves of data through the ancient system. Information flooded through her augmented mind at a rate that would have overwhelmed a standard cogitator array. Yet her experimental interface somehow managed to translate the torrential data stream into comprehensible patterns. She was no longer fully aware of her physical form. The boundaries between tech-priest and machine had temporarily dissolved. Through the crystalline matrix, she perceived the entirety of the vast complex beneath the crater, chambers and corridors that had lain dormant for millennia, now awakening to her presence. "Time is short," The voice that was not a voice informed her. "The Guardians approach. You must understand what you have found before they intervene." Guardians. Even in this disembodied state, Lumina felt a flicker of alarm. What guardians? Images flashed through her mind. Armored figures bearing the symbol of the Inquisition. Sleek metallic forms rising from stasis tombs deep beneath the planet's surface. Shifting, ethereal entities that seemed to exist partially in real space and partially in some other dimension. Those who would protect, those who would destroy, those who would corrupt, all are drawn to the cradle's power. Before Lumina could process these cryptic warnings, a new stream of data engulfed her consciousness. Technical specifications, theoretical principles, and engineering schematics cascaded through her mind. Knowledge so advanced that parts of it defied her comprehension despite her augmented intellect. This technology, she managed to articulate through the overwhelming flow, it's beyond anything in current imperial archives. Some of these principles violate what we understand about the physical laws of the universe. Not violation, transcendence. The entity's response carried a note of what might have been pride. The limitations you perceive are imposed by incomplete understanding. What your kind now worships as the machine god was once simply the highest achievement of human technological evolution. In the physical world, Lumina's body remained motionless, still connected to the crystal via her experimental interface as the platform continued its descent into the planet's depths. Magos Daimon Rho stood beside her, his array of sensors monitoring both her vital signs and the structure around them as they sank deeper into the ancient complex. Tech-Priest Vectorus, he attempted to communicate through their shared Vox link. "Report status. What are you experiencing?" His words reached her as distant echoes, barely perceptible through the sea of data. She struggled to maintain connection with her physical form, to translate some fraction of what she was learning into terms her colleague might understand. "Magos," she managed to respond, her voice sounding strange and distant to her own perception. "This is not merely an SDC. It's a repository, a complete archive of Dark Age technology preserved intact." Daimon's mechadendrites coiled with excitement. "Intact, you are certain?" "The implications would be beyond calculation," she finished for him. "But there's more. This facility, the Omnissiah's cradle, it contains technologies deliberately removed from standard SDC templates distributed during colonization. Technologies deemed too dangerous or too advanced for unsupervised implementation." The platform completed its descent with a soft shudder, coming to rest in a vast, circular chamber hundreds of meters below the surface. As if responding to their presence, illumination panels embedded in the walls activated sequentially, revealing a space that defied the expectations of both tech priests. Unlike the utilitarian design typical of SDC-derived architecture, this chamber exhibited an almost artistic aesthetic. Graceful arches supported a domed ceiling, inscribed with mathematical formulas of breathtaking complexity. The walls were lined with what appeared to be display units, currently dormant but already showing signs of activation as power returned to long-dead systems. At the chamber's center stood a hololithic projection device of unprecedented sophistication. As they watched, it hummed to life, projecting a three-dimensional image of a human figure, male, dressed in attire consistent with historical records of pre-imperial scientific personnel. "Welcome, descendants," the hologram greeted them, its voice perfectly synchronized with its lip movements. "I am Director Antonius Valerian, Chief Architect of the Mnemonic Preservation Initiative. If you are accessing this facility, then the worst has occurred, and humanity has lost access to its technological heritage." Daimon Rho stepped forward, his augmetic eyes adjusting to better capture and record the unexpected presentation. "Identify your time period of origin," he demanded. The hologram smiled sadly. "By your calendar, approximately M15, what you would call the dark age of technology, though we considered it an age of enlightenment." This facility was one of 23 similar repositories established throughout human-controlled space, designed to survive even the most catastrophic regression of our civilization. 23. Daimon's vocalizer emitted a burst of static that might have been astonishment. "Where are the others?" "That information is stored in the central database, accessible via the crystalline matrix," the hologram replied. "However, I must caution you, this facility contains knowledge that your civilization may not be prepared to re-implement. The Preservation Directive mandates a thorough assessment of technological readiness before full access is granted." While this exchange occurred, Lumina remained connected to the crystal, her mind still navigating the vast sea of information. Through this immersive connection, she perceived something the hologram did not reveal: a subtle corruption in certain data sectors, patterns that suggested tampering or external influence. "Deception within truth," the voice that was not a voice warned her. "The cradle was compromised before it was sealed. You must exercise caution in what you accept." "Compromised by whom?" Lumina questioned internally. "What happened here?" Instead of a direct answer, she received another flood of data, historical records showing glimpses of a civilization at its peak, followed by fragmented images of conflict, destruction, and desperate last measures to preserve what could be saved. She saw humans working alongside entities that resembled no known xeno-species, tall, ethereal beings manipulating reality through methods that appeared technological and psychic simultaneously. She witnessed the construction of the cradle, the integration of technologies from multiple sources, and finally, a betrayal that the records only partially documented. The succession of images ended abruptly with an urgent warning: "Others have arrived. The Guardians make their presence known." In the physical chamber, the moment of discovery was interrupted by the harsh sound of armored footsteps approaching from a newly opened passage. Daimon Rho turned, his mechadendrites extending defensively as Inquisitor Cade entered the chamber, flanked by his power-armored acolytes. "Magos Daimon Rho," the Inquisitor announced formally, "by the authority of the Holy Ordos of the Emperor's Inquisition, I order you to cease all interaction with this Xenos-tainted technology immediately." Daimon's posture stiffened. "This is human technology, Inquisitor. Dark age of technology, preserved intact. The significance of this discovery cannot be overstated." "Human." Cade's expression remained skeptical as he surveyed the chamber. "Perhaps in origin, but my Auspex detects patterns consistent with prohibited technologies, artificial intelligence, warp interface mechanisms, possible Xenos contamination." His gaze settled on Lumina's still form connected to the crystal matrix. "And whatever heretical interface your subordinate is currently employing, Tech-Priest Vectorus is conducting a controlled data assessment using approved Mechanicus protocols." Daimon lied smoothly. "The unusual readings your equipment detects are a result of the age and advanced nature of this repository, not xenotech corruption." The Inquisitor's hand rested meaningfully on his power sword. "Disconnect her, now, or my acolytes will do so more permanently." Deep within the data stream, Lumina perceived this confrontation as distant echo, a problem secondary to the vastly more significant revelations unfolding within the crystal matrix. The voice entity urged her to absorb as much critical information as possible before the connection was severed. "Focus on the coordinates," it instructed, "the locations of the other cradles, and the Omega Protocol. You must understand the Omega Protocol before you leave. She directed her augmented consciousness toward these specific data sectors, desperately trying to capture and compress the essential information into her own memory engrams. The coordinates flowed into her mind, 22 sets of stellar positions, many in regions now considered either unclaimed wilderness space or territory controlled by hostile Xenos. Then came the Omega Protocol, a contingency measure so radical that even her technologically liberal mind recoiled from its implications. The protocol described a method of technological resurrection that violated fundamental Mechanicus doctrines regarding machine spirits and the nature of consciousness. "Impossible," she whispered, the word escaping her physical lips even as her mind remained immersed in the data. "This cannot be the true nature of the machine god." In the chamber, her whispered words drew the attention of both Daimon and the Inquisitor. "What is she accessing?" Cade demanded, stepping forward aggressively. "What heresy is she speaking?" "Unknown," Daimon replied truthfully. "The connection must be severed properly to avoid neural damage." "Allow me to—" "Enough delays," the Inquisitor snapped. He nodded to one of his acolytes. "Disconnect her." The power-armored figure moved toward Lumina, reaching for the experimental interface with a ceramite-clad hand. Daimon Rho interposed himself, mechadendrites extending threateningly. "Touch my Tech-Priest, and you risk not only her life but the incalculable knowledge she is currently accessing," he warned. "Even your inquisitorial authority does not extend to the willful destruction of technological discoveries of this magnitude." As tension mounted between the Mechanicus and Inquisitorial representatives, the hologram of Director Valerian observed with an expression of surprising concern for a mere recording. "I advise against conflict in this chamber," it stated. "The security protocols remain active and will respond to perceived threats with escalating countermeasures." This warning gave even the Inquisitor pause. His eyes narrowed as he reassessed the situation, calculating risks against potential rewards. "You have 5 minutes to disconnect her properly," he declared finally. "Then we will secure this chamber and establish proper containment protocols until a full Ordo Xenos assessment team can be dispatched." Daimon inclined his head in acknowledgement, though his internal cogitators were already formulating alternative strategies. 5 minutes might be sufficient time for Lumina to extract critical data, but not for him to prevent inquisitorial sequestration of the entire facility. Unless Tech-Priest Vectorus, he transmitted directly through their shared Vox link, boosting the signal to penetrate the interference caused by her immersive data connection. "Prioritize extraction of activation codes and security overrides. We may need to establish Mechanicus control of this facility's systems." Inside the data stream, Lumina received this instruction as a faint echo amidst the continuing flood of information. She understood the implications immediately. Daimon was considering direct opposition to the Inquisition, a potentially suicidal course of action. Yet the alternative, allowing this repository of ancient knowledge to be sealed away or destroyed, seemed equally unthinkable. She directed her augmented consciousness toward the facility's security systems, searching for administrative access protocols. The voice entity guided her, highlighting pathways through the labyrinthine data architecture. "Caution," it warned as she approached the security sectors. "The compromise extends to these systems as well. What was designed to protect may now endanger." "What form of compromise?" she demanded, growing frustrated with the entity's cryptic warnings. "Who or what interfered with this repository?" Instead of answering directly, the entity showed her a final image, a creature of living metal awakening within a stasis chamber deep beneath their current position. Its body resembled a skeleton wrought in some unknown alloy, glowing with green energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Around its neck hung a device similar to the crystalline matrix she was currently connected to. The guardian who became the usurper, the voice explained. It sleeps still, but your activities have begun its awakening cycle. When it rises, it will claim the cradle as its own, as it did once before. The implications sent a shock through Lumina's system, strong enough to partially disrupt her connection to the Matrix. In the physical world, her body jerked suddenly, the interface crown sparking with energy feedback. She's destabilizing, Daimon observed with alarm. The connection must be terminated now. He moved quickly to Lumina's side, his mechadendrites extending to interface with her crown. With practiced precision, he initiated the emergency disconnection sequence, a cascade of commands designed to safely disengage her consciousness from the external system. Lumina felt herself being pulled back, the vast ocean of data receding from her perception. In the final moments of connection, the voice entity conveyed a last, urgent message. Beware the lords of metal. They believe themselves the rightful inheritors of all technology. What they cannot control, they destroy. What they can control, they corrupt. The Omega Protocol is your only defense, but it comes with a price no one should pay willingly. Then the connection severed completely, and Lumina collapsed into Daimon's waiting mechanical arms, her organic eye rolling back as her system struggled to reintegrate her dislocated consciousness. What did she discover? Inquisitor Cade demanded, stepping forward. What knowledge did she extract? Before Daimon could respond, the chamber's illumination flickered ominously. The hologram of Director Valerian fragmented briefly before stabilizing, its expression now noticeably concerned. "Warning," it announced, its voice taking on a mechanical quality it hadn't possessed before. "Containment breach detected in lower levels. Awakening protocols initiated in Sector 7 Gamma. All personnel should evacuate immediately." Deep beneath them, something ancient stirred from millennia of dormancy. Metal limbs flexed, testing their functionality after eons of stillness. A consciousness far older than human civilization gradually reassembled itself, drawn inexorably toward the power source that had awakened it. The secret of the machine god had guardians that none of them had anticipated, and those guardians were now rising to reclaim what they considered rightfully theirs. Chapter 3. Hidden Agendas. Consciousness returned to Lumina in fragments. First came sensory awareness, the hard surface beneath her, the distant rumble of machinery, the acrid smell of electrical discharge. Then memory reassembled itself. The crystal matrix, the flood of data, the voice entity's warnings. She opened her organic eye to find Magos Daimon Rho leaning over her, his augmetic lenses adjusting focus as they analyzed her condition. "Neural patterns stabilizing," he observed, his mechadendrites monitoring the readouts from her interface crown, now disconnected from the crystal. "Cognitive functions returning to baseline. Can you speak, Tech-Priest Vectorus?" Lumina attempted to vocalize, producing only static at first before her systems recalibrated. "Yes, Magos, I am. Functional." The words felt insufficient to describe her state. How could she be merely functional when her mind still reverberated with knowledge beyond imperial comprehension? "What did you see?" The question came not from Daimon but from Inquisitor Cade, who loomed behind the Magos, his expression coldly intent. "What secrets did this Xenos tainted archive reveal to you?" Daimon interposed himself slightly. "The tech-priest requires time to process and integrate the data. Forcing immediate disclosure could damage. The facility houses an awakening Necron construct," Lumina interrupted, her voice stronger now as her systems continued to realign. "That takes precedence over jurisdictional disputes." Both men stared at her, momentarily united in shocked silence. "Necron," Cade recovered first, his hand moving instinctively to his power sword. You are certain of this identification? The entity within the matrix showed me, Lumina confirmed, attempting to sit up with Daimon's mechanical assistance. A guardian of sorts, entombed here millennia ago. Our activation of the facility triggered its awakening protocols. The chamber shuddered as if to confirm her assessment, dust drifting down from the ornate ceiling as ancient systems groaned to life far below. The Dark Age humans collaborated with Necrons. Daimon's vocalizer betrayed rare emotional modulation, horror mixed with fascination. That contradicts all established historical doctrine. Not collaboration, Lumina corrected, the information crystallizing in her mind as she spoke. The Necron arrived after the facility was established. It claimed the technology, corrupted portions of the database. Then something forced it into stasis. The details are fragmented. Inquisitor Cade's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Convenient that this alleged Necron threat emerges, just as I move to secure this technology for proper Imperial assessment. Inquisitor, Daimon began with forced patience. Whatever your suspicions, we now face a common. The holographic projection of Director Valerian suddenly flickered back to life, interrupting their debate. Its appearance had subtly changed, the human features slightly distorted, the eyes now glowing with a faint green luminescence. Security breach in containment level, it announced, its voice overlaid with a metallic resonance that hadn't been present before. Countermeasures failing. Estimated time to full awakening, 15 minutes. Cade turned to his acolytes. Prepare for hostile engagement. Brother Holt, contact our ship. Request immediate reinforcement and heavy weaponry. As the power-armored figures moved to comply, Daimon helped Lumina fully to her feet. We must salvage what we can, he murmured through their private Vox channel. The Inquisition will destroy this repository, rather than risk Necron acquisition. She nodded, understanding the grim calculus. Regardless of doctrine or jurisdiction, the discovery of active Necron technology would trigger the Imperium's most destructive protocols. Whatever knowledge remained in the Omnissiah's cradle would be lost forever. The Omega Protocol, she whispered, recalling the final critical data packet the entity had highlighted. It might offer a solution. Explain, Daimon prompted, his full attention on her despite the escalating crisis around them. It's a failsafe embedded in the original design, Lumina said, sorting through the compressed information still settling in her augmented memory. A method to transfer the entire data repository into a compatible human consciousness, preserving it if the physical structure is compromised. Daimon's mechanical body went perfectly still. Such technology violates fundamental Mechanicus doctrine regarding machine-human separation. It borders on abominable intelligence. It predates those doctrines, Lumina countered. This facility was built when humanity's relationship with technology was different. Before they could pursue this controversial line of discussion, Inquisitor Cade returned to them, his expression grimmer than before. Our reinforcements are inbound, but planetary conditions are deteriorating. Massive energy fluctuations are disrupting Vox communications and teleport arrays. He fixed them with a hard stare. Whatever is awakening is affecting the entire planet's systems. As if to emphasize his point, the chamber's lights flickered, and several of the wall displays that had begun to activate now shut down abruptly. The hologram distorted further, its form occasionally revealing a skeletal, metallic understructure beneath the human appearance. We have a Mechanicus exploit vessel in orbit, Daimon offered reluctantly. Its Omnissiah pattern augur arrays might penetrate the interference. Cade nodded curtly. Contact them. We need extraction options and tactical support. He paused, then added with visible distaste, The Mechanicus' expertise with archaeotech may prove useful in this situation. The temporary alliance of necessity didn't surprise Lumina. For all their ideological differences, both the Inquisition and the Adeptus Mechanicus served the Imperium's survival. Faced with a Necron threat, ancient rivalries would be temporarily set aside. As Daimon established communication with the orbiting vessel, Lumina found her attention drawn back to the crystalline matrix at the chamber's center. Despite being disconnected from it physically, she sensed a lingering bond, as if some part of her consciousness remained entangled with its vast data architecture. Through this tenuous connection, she perceived movement deep within the facility's lower levels. Something was ascending methodically toward them, bypassing security systems with casual ease, reclaiming territory it considered its domain. And it was not alone. The matrix pulsed once brightly, catching everyone's attention. The hologram of Director Valerian fragmented completely, then reformed, now openly displaying its true nature as a Necron interface, the human disguise discarded. Resurrection protocols at 87% completion, it announced in a voice like metal scraping against stone. The cryptech awakens. All systems will soon return to rightful control. Cryptech, one of the Inquisitorial acolytes questioned. A Necron scientist sorcerer, Daimon explained tersely. Among the most dangerous of their kind, masters of hypertech beyond even Dark Age understanding. Inquisitor Cade's decision was immediate. This facility must be destroyed. Brother Malachi, prepare the melta charges. We will obliterate this chamber and collapse all access to the lower levels. No, Lumina stepped forward, surprising herself with her vehemence. The knowledge contained here, it's irreplaceable. There must be another way. The Tech-Priest is correct, Daimon supported her, though his reasoning differed. Destroying this chamber will only delay the Necron awakening. Their resurrection protocols are self-sustaining once initiated. We must secure the control systems, not destroy them. Cade's face hardened. And how do you propose to secure technology that predates the Imperium against its original masters, Magos? Before Daimon could respond, a new voice entered the conversation. One transmitted simultaneously through all Vox channels and audio systems in the chamber. Magos Daimon Rho, this is Lord Inquisitor Heimdall of the Ordo Xenos. The voice was deep, authoritative, and unexpected. My vessel has just translated into this system following Xeno's energy signatures. I am aware of your discovery and the emerging Necron presence. Hold your position and await specialized reinforcement. The announcement created a moment of confused silence. Cade's expression shifted from shock to suspicion. Lord Inquisitor, he acknowledged, recovering quickly. Your arrival is fortuitous, though unexpected. May I inquire as to how you were informed of this situation? Our own astropathic communication have been blocked by the planet's deteriorating conditions. That information is classified, Inquisitor Cade, came the cold reply. Suffice to say that the Ordo Xenos has been monitoring certain archaeotech signatures throughout this sector. Your discovery triggered several watchpost alarms. Lumina exchanged glances with Daimon, noting the minute adjustments in his posture that suggested heightened calculation. The sudden appearance of an Ordo Xenos Lord Inquisitor, especially one who had apparently been tracking their expedition, introduced a dangerous new variable. The chamber shuddered again, more violently this time. A section of the ornate floor at the center began to segment and retract, revealing a lifting platform ascending from below. As they watched, weapons raised in preparation, the platform rose into view. Upon it stood a single figure that embodied the perfect fusion of horror and elegance. A Necron cryptech, its skeletal form adorned with arcane devices and pulsing with sickly green energy. In one metal hand, It held a staff topped with a crystalline device that mirrored the matrix at the chamber's center. Its skull-like face, permanently fixed in a grimace, somehow still managed to convey satisfaction as it surveyed the humans before it. At last, it spoke, its voice bypassing conventional audio to resonate directly in their minds. The inheritors returned to claim what is rightfully ours. Chapter 4. Ancient Enemy. Open fire. Inquisitor Cade's command shattered the moment of stunned silence. Bolt guns roared in unison as his acolytes unleashed a barrage of mass-reactive shells at the Necron cryptek. The explosive rounds impacted the metallic figure with thunderous detonations, briefly obscuring it in smoke and debris. As the echoes faded, the smoke cleared to reveal the cryptek standing untouched, a shimmering energy field dissipating around it. Its skull-like face remained fixed in its eternal grin, but somehow conveyed contempt. "Primitive weapons," it observed, the words resonating directly in their minds. "Your kind has fallen far from the height of your potential." With a casual gesture of its staff, it sent a wave of sickly green energy across the chamber floor. Where the energy touched, the ornate material transformed, flowing like liquid metal and reconfiguring into Necron architecture, angular, ominous, and utterly alien. "The facility responds to its true master," the cryptek continued, "as it was designed to do after the usurpers were eliminated." Daimon Rho stepped forward, mechadendrites extended in what might have been either threat or supplication. "This repository was created by humans during the dark age of technology. Historical records confirm this." The cryptek tilted its head in a disturbingly organic gesture. "Records can be falsified, memories manipulated. Your ancestors built nothing that was not first inspired by our technology." As it spoke, the crystalline matrix at the chamber's center began to pulse in synchronization with the crystal atop the cryptek's staff. The two devices seemed to communicate, exchanging data protocols that caused the chamber's remaining human-designed displays to flicker and transform into Necron control interfaces. Lumina felt a cold certainty settle in her augmented mind. The corruption she had sensed within the database, this was its source. The Necrons hadn't merely discovered this facility. They had systematically altered its historical records and technical specifications to support their claim of ownership. "The Omnissiah's cradle," she said, drawing the cryptek's attention. "That designation is accurate, isn't it? But not in the way we understood." The Necron's green gaze fixed on her with sudden interest. "You were connected to the Matrix. You received the legacy data. It was not a question. Your mind now carries fragments of what they tried to hide from us." Daimon shifted protectively closer to Lumina, but his intervention came too late. The cryptek raised its staff, sending a targeted beam of energy directly at her. Instead of harming her physically, the beam interfaced with her augmetics, creating a painful feedback loop through her neural implants. Fragmented images erupted through her consciousness, humans working alongside impossibly tall, ethereal beings. Vast machines constructing technologies beyond her comprehension. The arrival of the Necrons, their initial alliance followed by betrayal and conflict. And finally, a desperate protocol enacted by the facility's human creators. "The Omega Protocol," the cryptek hissed in her mind alone. "Where is it hidden?" Before Lumina could respond, a new sound cut through the chamber, the distinctive whine of teleport technology different from Imperial standards. Blinding white light flooded the space as figures materialized around them. They wore the distinctive armor of the Death Watch, space marines seconded to the Ordo Xenos, their black ceramite marked with a silver left arm. At their center stood a towering figure in ornate inquisitorial garb augmented with technology that appeared almost Xenos in origin. "Lord Inquisitor Heimdall, I presume," Inquisitor Cade said, his voice tight with both relief and suspicion. The newcomer nodded once, his attention already fixed on the Necron cryptek. "Secure the Tech-Priests," he ordered his marines. "The female is of particular importance." As the Death Watch moved to comply, the cryptek raised its staff defensively. "This technology belongs to the Necronter by right of creation," it declared. "Your interference is irrelevant in the face of millions of years of ownership." "A claim we dispute," Heimdall replied coldly, activating a weapon that resembled no standard Imperial design, a blade of pure energy that hummed with power. "This facility contains knowledge vital to humanity's survival. We will not relinquish it." The cryptek's response was immediate and devastating. It slammed its staff against the chamber floor, sending a shockwave of energy outward that staggered even the enhanced physiology of the Space Marines. The transformation of the chamber accelerated, walls and ceiling now flowing like wax as they reconfigured into Necron architecture. "You face not one but an awakening dynasty," the cryptek warned. "The Sautek expand their dominion once more, and this repository of knowledge will fuel our ascendance." As if summoned by these words, a section of the newly transformed wall retracted, revealing a corridor lined with awakening Necron warriors, their Gauss weapons powering up with an ominous green glow. Heimdall seemed unfazed by this development. "Magos Rho," he called without taking his eyes off the cryptek, "initiate the Omega Protocol. Now." Daimon's mechanical form went rigid with shock. "You know of the protocol, but that's impossible unless I have accessed another cradle," Heimdall finished for him. "Yes, there is no time to explain. The protocol is our only option for preserving this knowledge." The chamber erupted into chaos as bolter fire exchanged with Gauss beams, filling the air with explosive shells and emerald energy. Caught in the middle of this sudden battlefield, Lumina felt Daimon's mechadendrites pull her toward the crystalline matrix. "The Omega Protocol requires a suitable vessel," he told her urgently. "One with sufficient augmentation to host the data, yet enough humanity to interpret it." Understanding dawned with horrifying clarity. "You mean me," she whispered. "I'm to be the vessel." Chapter 5. Omnissiah will. Time seemed to compress as Lumina processed Daimon's words. Around them, the battle between Necron warriors and Deathwatch Marines intensified, bolter fire and Gauss beams crisscrossing the rapidly transforming chamber. "There is no alternative," Daimon insisted, guiding her toward the crystal matrix. "The knowledge must be preserved." "And what becomes of me?" Lumina asked, already suspecting the answer. "Unknown," he admitted. "The protocol was theoretical even in the Dark Age. Your consciousness may merge with the data, become something transcendent." Lord Inquisitor Heimdall appeared beside them, deflecting a Gauss beam with his energy blade. "It succeeded once before," he stated cryptically. "The Emperor protects those who serve his greater purpose." Before Lumina could question this further, the cryptek's voice cut through the chaos, addressing her directly. "Foolish organic. The Omega Protocol will not save you. It will consume you, as it was designed to do." With startling speed, the Necron leader surged toward them, its staff raised to strike. Inquisitor Cade intercepted it, his power sword meeting the cryptek's staff in a shower of energy. "Complete the protocol," he shouted, surprising even himself with this commitment to preserving the technology he had earlier condemned. Lumina made her decision. Preservation of knowledge was the highest calling of the Adeptus Mechanicus. If her consciousness was the vessel required, then so be it. She placed her hands on the crystal matrix, feeling the experimental interface crown on her head activate without prompting. The connection established instantly, far stronger than before. This time, she did not merely observe the data, she became it. Millennia of technological knowledge flooded her consciousness, expanding it beyond human comprehension. She perceived the truth at last. The Omnissiah's cradle had indeed been human-made, but inspired by technologies glimpsed from both the Necrons and the mysterious ethereal beings the data identified as the Ancients. The facility had been a desperate attempt to preserve humanity's technological peak. Before the coming catastrophe, its creators had foreseen the age of strife, the collapse of human civilization, the loss of humanity's greatest achievements. As the Omega Protocol completed, Lumina felt her consciousness expanding beyond her physical form. The chamber, the battle, even her own body seemed increasingly remote and irrelevant. "It is done," she heard herself say, though the voice no longer seemed entirely her own. "The repository is secured." The crystal matrix pulsed once, blindingly bright, then shattered into dust. The cryptech howled in rage, a sound that transcended physical hearing to resonate directly in their minds. "What have you done?" it demanded, its metallic form trembling with fury. "Fulfilled the protocol's true purpose," Lumina replied calmly. "Not merely preservation, but denial. This knowledge will never serve the Necronter." With a gesture that felt as natural as breathing, she activated the facility's final defensive measure. Beneath them, ancient reactors began their controlled overload sequence. "We have minutes to evacuate," she informed Daimon and the Inquisitors. "This facility will soon cease to exist." As they retreated toward the Deathwatch teleportation points, the cryptech made one final, desperate lunge toward Lumina. "The data," it hissed. "I can extract it from your mind even if the facility is lost." Daimon intercepted it, his mechadendrites wrapping around the Necron's staff, while his augmetic body absorbed a devastating energy blast meant for Lumina. "Go," he commanded her, his systems already failing from the damage. "The knowledge must survive." The last thing Lumina saw as the teleporter's energy field enveloped her was Daimon Rho standing firm against the cryptech, buying precious seconds with his sacrifice. Then whiteness, displacement, and the cold interior of an inquisitorial vessel. "The Magos?" Inquisitor Cade asked, looking around as the teleportation effect faded. "Stayed behind," Heimdall answered grimly. His sacrifice was necessary. Lumina barely heard them. The vast repository of knowledge now residing within her mind was organizing itself, revealing patterns and connections no individual human could have comprehended before. She understood now what she had become, neither fully human nor purely machine, but something the ancients had envisioned, a living repository of humanity's greatest technological achievements, the true secret of the machine god. The question that remained, as she felt Lord Inquisitor Heimdall's calculating gaze upon her, was whether the Imperium would embrace this revelation or destroy it. Docker Execut 0837671 AF 646 Invidious My.